Our notes for today are on communities. You need to fill in your notes paper, attach it in your notebook on the next page right after populations, and then finish your paper about the deer. I will be uploading another document into Schoology to help you to finish the graph part, and then you're going to answer all the questions and turn it in. If you need one of those papers, they're on that silver cart in my room. So, notes for today on communities. A community, all living things in one area, or several populations living together and how they interact. Habitat and niche. The habitat is where they live, but the niche is something a little more specific. It's the habitat plus how they use their habitat. So if you said that those birds lived in a tree, that would be a habitat. If you said specifically they live in the top of the tree and they use the tree in these ways, that would be a niche. There's some more examples of what a niche is coming up. Stuff in a niche. It includes their place in the food web, the temperature they like to live at, the type of food they eat, how they get their food, what other species also eat that food, who eats them, like who their predators are, when and how it reproduces, and anything else it needs to survive. So, the important thing to remember here is that two species can live in the same place, but they will not have exactly the same niche. If they do, they're going to compete for resources, and there's going to be a winner and a loser. The best way I can compare this to humans is if you think of like your room at home or your space, if you share a room, if somebody else tries to get into that space, if you have a younger brother or sister that tries to get into your space, it's not going to be good for them, is it? That's your space. So if you think of, let's go back here. Your house, the whole house is like your habitat. You live there, and other things live there too, other people and maybe pets. But your specific room, your specific space is your niche. So it's more than just where you live, it's also how you use where you live. For those birds in that picture, some of the birds live on the bottom, some in the middle, some on the top. So even though they live in the same tree, they don't have the same niche. Going on to community interactions. I'm pretty sure the first two were just listed on your notes because you kind of know what they are. Community interaction number 1, competition. More than one organism tries to use the same resource. Animals can compete. Plants also compete. It just doesn't look very exciting, but they still do compete for resources. Interaction number 2 is predators and prey. You can see on this graph the wolves are the reddish line, the moose are the purple line. But right after the moose population goes up, a couple of years later, the wolf population goes up. Then the moose go down, the wolves go down, and the moose go back up, and the wolves can go back up. So they cycle up and down together. More predators means that they eat more of the moose. Moose population will go down. Then with fewer moose, the wolves have less to eat, so they go down. But then there's more moose because there's nobody eating them, so their population go back up, and then wolves go back up, and so on and so on and so on. Interaction number 3, symbiosis. It's a relationship where two species live closely together. There are 3 kinds: mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. We have examples and definitions coming up next. Mutualism means that both benefit. Both are getting something good out of it. So flowers and bees, or whoever's pollinating them, the flower is used to reproduce for the plant, But since plants can't get up and go reproduce with another plant, they need to have another way to send their pollen or whatever they have to the other plant. So when a bee lands on a flower, it kind of just jumps all over the flower, gets covered in pollen, then goes to the next flower, and when it's jumping all over that flower, it's dropping off the pollen from the previous flower. So as the bee is buzzing around in between the different flowers, it's passing around the pollen. But the bee's not doing that just because they're a really nice bee. They're also getting food out of the flower. They're getting nectar so that they can go make their honey. So the flower's benefiting because it helps to get reproduced. The bee is getting food, so they're both benefiting. The middle picture, the Nemo fish, the clownfish, and the anemone. The anemone protects the fish chases other things away from the anemone, so they're protecting each other. It's mutualism. On the right side there's a little tiny bird on top of that antelope. So the bird eats any parasites off of the antelope, so antelope doesn't have parasites anymore. Bird has food, they both benefit. Commensalism, one benefits, the other one doesn't really care. So on the left side, those bumps on the whale, those are barnacles. They're actually little animals. But once they stick somewhere, they can't move anymore. So if they stick to a bad place, that's not really a good barnacle. They're not going to feed very much there. So sometimes barnacles will attach to whales or to sea turtles or other living things. So, like the whale doesn't really care that it's on there. But the barnacle is now helped because it gets food easier, so that would be commensalism. On the right side, that is a shark with little remora fish. Remora fish kind of follow around the shark, and as the shark eats, sharks don't eat very neatly. They kind of throw stuff all over the water. So the little remora fish follow it and eat all the little scraps that float in the water. The shark doesn't care that they're there, but the remoras get food, so it's commensalism. Parasitism, one benefits and it hurts the other. So you can think of things like fleas, ticks, mosquitoes. You can even think of diseases. It's benefiting, but it's hurting whatever it's on. And last part, climax community. It's a mature, stable community, not undergoing any major changes. So, if you think of it this way, if we had absolutely nothing, just like rocks, there's nothing living on there. First, you'd have the very small plants that would come in. And then very small animals would come along, maybe like insects and small birds and stuff like that. Then bigger plants can grow with bigger animals coming in, and bigger plants and bigger animals, and so on, until you end up having a big, mature community that has giant plants and lots of different plants and lots of different animals. That would be a climax community. One more time, make sure that your notes are filled in and put in your notebook. You're going to finish the Kai Bob Deer paper. There will be another document in Schoology to help you to finish it. If you have any questions, send me a message or make sure to ask me tomorrow.